Wait, we're in the grand final now. Wait, I've listened to all the songs now. Does this mean I can look at the back of the CD? Oh. I've been rickrolled. Hello, this is J.E. Realize. Thank you for flying with us today. And we're going to talk about the grand finale in Eurovision Malmö, Sweden 2024 this episode. But first, I need to cover, long overdue, I need to cover the semi-final qualifiers. And you might be wondering a few things about my mindset going in. First, I want to talk about how I realized I've been doing the semi-final qualifiers. I've realized that I had been limiting myself on how many times I watched the performances and listened to the songs, as well as make sure I get enough to understand the song to begin with and kind of sort of form a opinion in the almost moment. And that got me pretty close to what the public decided in 2023. We'll see if that happens again, but I do want to bring up another thing I thought I would do. This is new to this edition, but I decided to do a power ranking of all the entrants that have yet to win the Eurovision Song Contest, and try to form some idea of where I think they would be. Not just my opinion, but try to figure out based off of how I feel the viewers would react. And you have a few stragglers at the bottom, like Iceland and Georgia and Malta, that sort of stuff. But around the top, you can see Croatia's up there. I'll get into that. And you also have a few other entrants, like Czechia, Slovenia, San Marino. I don't really think San Marino has much a chance to win, really. After all, San Marino is itself, it's gonna have a lot of trouble hosting the contest. Not saying that it's impossible, but realistically, they can't host it within their own borders. But I thought I would just make the list just to contextualize things and try to focus my headspace. But now finally we get to the semi-final qualifiers. I wanted to do a bit of a quasi live reaction, as in I'm watching the semi-final qualifiers delayed. Yes, I do that. I think it's a bit much to get the qualifiers after I had just seen the performances, but I am watching the video itself, and I would try to cut in some of those reactions of seeing people qualify. But when I recorded the video, it was generally unusable. There was so much noise going on around me, some things that were happening in construction. You know we're getting fiber optic around here, right? But yeah, there are a few neat things to go into when we talk about semi-final one. For that, I have this. I drew up these index cards full of flags a long time ago, and I stuffed some of those flags in this envelope. Okay, not an envelope, but then I tried to do it with an actual envelope, and the color bleeds through with light. Yeah, that's not ideal. And we're gonna kind of sort of go through my mindset when I saw these qualifiers. Now, there have been a few things that have changed. For instance, the green room is no longer out right next to the audience and where you could get a clear view of the stage. They put it behind the LED wall, kind of like, think Dusseldorf 2011, that sort of thing. You have the top and the bottom separate this time rather than the sides separate to see the contestants. So we would have that for the semifinal qualifiers and, yes, the final results. I do kind of miss seeing the green room out where the audience is, because you would have them just enjoying the show, but it's kind of harder to do that when you're technically backstage. But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Okay, first up, who qualifies first? It's Serbia. Okay, pretty nice song, pretty decent. And you notice another big change that has happened. Back in around the turn of the 2010s, you would notice that when a country qualifies, music playing of the qualifying entry. Now, I can see why they could have removed it, 2012, 2013, I don't remember the exact year, because it may have been a bit demoralizing to everyone else who had yet to be announced. But I do kind of like this bit of continuity. It serves as a refresher to the layperson who's watching and has no idea who got selected. But this time we also got a picture-by-picture video performance of the song to accompany the music, which I'd say, if you're gonna do this, that's the next step up. Second qualifier is Portugal. I didn't quite expect Portugal to qualify, but okay. Third up is Slovenia. Raven gets in. Okay, that's gonna be a bit of fun in Eurovision. Fourth one is Ukraine, because of course. Fifth up is Lithuania. Pretty solid. They're waving Ukrainian flags in solidarity. I don't remember if it was this show or a different show. Sixth up is Finland. No rules. Pretty solid set of qualifying songs, but nothing particularly attention-grabby. And then we get Cyprus, which, you know, Cyprus just coasting off of trying to do that slick dance pop beat. Then we get the 8th song. Now, the 8th song is pretty special, pretty coveted. Not always, but usually a song that has a good chance of doing really well in the contest gets picked 8th. And for this time, it's Croatia. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a bop, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. We only have 2 qualifiers left. Let's see who is 9th, and it is Ireland. They have broken their drought that they have had since 2018. By this point, I'm pretty much happy. You could probably do anything else on the list, but this is generally fine for me. All of my top picks have essentially qualified at this point, so what really is there to complain about? Which leads us to song number 10. It is Luxembourg. You know what? Sure. I didn't really expect Luxembourg to qualify, but so long as this qualification means that they don't withdraw immediately after this contest, after making such a big deal that they would come back after 30 years, you know what? Sure. But there was something that you notice as we were building up to the 10th participant, and that is the camera angles on all the countries yet to be announced. I love this. I've seen this in Melodifestivalen back in the past, and I wanted to do a variation of this for Eurovision and see something like this for American Song Contest. Now, American Song Contest kind of cheated when they did it, because you would know if you watched the American Song Contest that they would do the remaining announcements on the next show, but they don't have space in the green room for them, so they all huddle them up across 2 tables, and we would get the camera shots on that. Yeah, it's something, I guess. But yeah, this one change I really want Eurovision to keep, essentially. Also, another change is that they brought back rejoicing qualifiers. Kinda, sort of. They're not on stage. It's kind of a bit cumbersome to get them on stage, although it's not theoretically impossible. But yeah, they would essentially line up across the balcony, and you would have a camera running through all of their shots. It's better than nothing, I guess. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time more than 5 qualifiers from the first half of the first semi-final have been announced for any given show. Now, I think 2018 was probably close, but it had always been a curse. Up to this point, at least. But yeah, now we've seen how the semifinals kind of sort of work. We're on to semifinal 2, and I'm focusing primarily on my top 6. I'm pretty happy from the semi 1 results, but I feel semifinal 2 has real strong entries. So we'll start us off with Latvia. Oh yes, Latvia. Their streak that has lasted back all the way to after 2016 has been broken. Broken with dance. You know what? That's not the worst choice to break it. Next up is Austria, which I had barely put on my top 10. I mean, I don't think Austria's song is a bad song. Heck, I don't think most of the songs on my lists are bad songs. I just have priorities. I just rank them how I feel are better songs or worse songs. But yeah, okay. Latvia is one of my top 6. Austria got in. Who's next? And it's Netherlands. Netherlands was my 7th. And, you know, kind of nice to see such a bop going in. Okay, I can kind of forgive them a bit. Next up we get Norway, another one of my top 6. Pretty solid. Things seem kind of fine if a bit shaky. There are still 4 of my top 6 yet to be announced, and there are 6 spots left. Then we get Israel. They qualify, okay. And then 6th up we get Hellas. Wait, what? We get... Oh boy. Oh boy. We're already in a bad position already. 4 of my top 6 have yet to be announced, and there are only 4 spots to be announced. It has to happen with the next one. Otherwise, we're going to have to kick one of my favorites off to the curb. I just cannot believe the Eurovision audience right now. Really? Isti? Okay. That is bad, but it is not insurmountable. We'll have to mill one of my favorites, because remember how I mentioned Latvia and Norway? Yeah, when I finished the rankings, neither of those two were in my top 4. This is bad, because now only 3 of my top 4 could potentially advance. Okay, 8th up. Let's hope for a big one, and it is. It is! Switzerland, Schweiz, Svizzera, Swiss. That's so nice, I have to say it quadrice. Okay, Switzerland is in. Real good, real solid song. But I am still worried for my favorites. It's not looking good. It's not feeling good. And the fact that I took this in immediately after watching the Semi-1 qualifiers and not long before the grand final, it doesn't do well for the good old self-esteem. Okay, 9th up. Let's see who we... Really? Really? Okay, what is with this generic pop rehash stuff making it through to the final? Oh, this is absurdly bad. I only have 1 spot to qualify any of my 3 remaining top 4 favorites. And yeah, I was getting really nervous because no matter who comes out, I've already lost. And you want to know the insult to injury? As I was waiting for the 10th qualifier, as we were getting those camera angles of the participants who have yet to be announced, the crowd started chanting Malta. Malta? Malta? Really? Malta was late to the party with that kind of song, and you want to push it now? But then it gets worse. My bottom 4 qualified instead of 3 of my top 4. I was breathless. That's how much I was floored. Just what had happened with this list? Okay, in retrospect, you could come up with reasons for why the ones I picked didn't qualify. San Marino obviously had the earpiece issue and the performance was super rough. And I had really hoped that the nature of the song would overcome that, but it didn't. Then you had Czechia, which was subject to, I'm going to call it the Britpop curse. A lot of entries that come in that have that Britpop feel don't really do well because Europe is just so used to it that they want new material. Come on, just stop sending us this imported trash. You know, like, for example, Azerbaijan last year. They were in Liverpool. They sent in Britpop and they didn't succeed with that. UK in 2016? Presumably UK this year. You do not know. But basically, if you're going to go in with a Britpop song, you need to really stand out. So that was probably Czechia's big flaw. It's not a bad song, but the desensitization is kind of a problem. And then there's Belgium, which you could say that there was a bit of a problematic message in there, particularly in the third half. But besides all that, I was gutted. Really? How was I supposed to enjoy the grand final at this point, huh? Okay, I could count on, Croatia, Switzerland, maybe Ukraine, a few other songs that I could say probably pretty good, maybe the Netherlands, but dag nabbit, I am just not in the greatest of spirits, and now I have to set up to watch the grand final and take this with me into the show. But yeah, seriously, bring the juries back for the semifinals. I mean, not only are you going to temper the taste of the public for the long term, you're also gonna give an extra performance to these performers for them to have a better chance of qualifying. I mean, also, remember what I said last year about one of the big reasons why you should have kept the juries in the semifinal? Stay tuned, because I have a feeling it may happen again. Okay, we're back, and this time we're going to go into the grand final proper. It's Saturday, May 11th, and it's time to get the show on in Malmö. And for me, it was kind of hard to do. I needed to set up my computer to stream the contest in the United States in the living room. I needed to get a computer down there. My options weren't that great. My laptop's battery stopped working, and this is the second battery it's been on. I don't even know how you can make those bad batteries, or I guess the designs that lead to a lower battery life. That did make me miss part of the opening. There was that little bit in which you'd see all these light orbs or whatever flying through their respective countries to get all the way over to Malmö. The whole idea being Malmö is Sweden's gateway to the rest of Europe. Okay, that's fine. You also have a crown princess of Sweden going around and saying, we hope you enjoy the show, in this lovely indoor plaza. Goodness sake. But yeah, after that we get a bit of an interview, because remember, this is the 50th anniversary of ABBA's win. Remember that. And from there we get the flag parade. Everyone going down, walking through the stage with their flag to the tunes of popular Swedish artists, and you may be noticing something may be off. I will get into that, but yeah, after all of that is done, we get to Malin Öckerman. I'm close. I feel I'm close, but not quite there. And Petra Mede, the hosts of this year's contest. They go about talking about the contest and berating those who don't know about the contest by giving them a super comically short yet very comically packed set of Eurovision memorable moments. You know what? Sure. But at the same time, I feel I'm kind of getting tired of the Petra class act sort of motif. It's good for 1 year's contest, but seriously, I mean, I don't know what to say beyond that. It's getting tiresome. But yeah, after doing that little thing, they go on to announce that the voting has opened. This is not a new thing. This has happened in precisely 2 years, in 2010 and 2011. But the difference is that this is happening solely for the grand final this year, rather than all the shows. But yeah, something trips me out about having voting all night long. I'm just not much a fan of that, because now the public is going to be a bit more vapid with their choices. They're going to be more voting in the moment. They're going to be hearing a song, they're going to be going, oh, I'm just going to give a lot of points to this song, not realizing that there are other big songs they could be liking coming up, and then by the time they see yet another act that they feel they really need to vote for, they're going, oh, I'm out of points. Pietro did say, if you haven't heard any of the songs, are you insane? Have you been living under a rock? That's the Zero Tolerance Club for you, also known as Sweden. Don't worry, you could listen to all the songs first and then vote. But can you really count the audience to have that sort of restraint? But yeah, one quick note before we leave. The hosts announced that the winner will get the Eurovision trophy, some fame, and a DVD box set of Gilmore Girls Season 3. And they made sure to repeat that after all the performances have been done. I'm holding you to it. The winner had better get that box set. Okay, with that bit out of the way, let's finally get into the very first song of the evening, which is Sweden? Wait, hold on, Sweden? For those of you who don't know how the running order is selected these days, are you insane? Since 2013, the running order has been selected in advance by the broadcaster hosting the upcoming Eurovision Song Contest, except for two things, which are selected at random. The allocation of which half or which semifinal in which each participant will participate, and the slot in which the host participates. And it is honestly hilarious that for the first time since this has been set up, the hosts go first. But this kind of makes me a little bit sad. Sweden, hosting the contest, had decided to step it up and provide an actual solid host entry defense with Marcus and Martinius. I told you last year that I had listened to Melodifestival in 2023 in order to prepare for Eurovision 2023. And one of the entrants in the grand finale of Melodifestivalen was indeed by Marcus and Martinius. They had competed with an entry called Air, and I thought it was pretty good, but ultimately not deserving to beat Loreen. Melodifestival in 2023 was kind of weak, but I'm glad that they came back, and they came back with a bop. They're in the contest with this hit called Unforgettable. It has a very mid to late 2000s post-boy band breakup kind of feel to it. Like, you know, that stuff from the 2000s, especially the late 2000s, well, it really depends, but late 2000s I could get a lot of mileage from. I get a lot of nostalgia from, and this thing really hits me. But it does have a few problems. First, the message. It's, you know, a message we heard before, like she'll chew you up, leave you empty, hollow, and then spit you out? Okay, you needed to work on that lyric. But also, this could be a song about Jezebel. You remember Jezebel from 2 years ago? That makes sense. Woke up with bruises on my body, hands tied like Jesus on the cross. Your name's in lipstick in the mirror. Anyway, but those are nitpicks. The real big problem with this song is it feels too short. The set, the performance was awesome. You had, you know, all these big cubes in the sky that Sweden had brought in for the event. They were used masterfully. And this whole codebreaker thing was really awesome. They tried to go for a bit of a Matrix feel, although they could have had a set of ASCII characters at the end recover from the error and spell out Unforgettable. But that may have been a bit cheesy. I could understand why they didn't do that. But the end felt pretty rushed. You had this big build-up, this big bridge, and then that's the end. Oh, it was so close. Oh, this could have been so super close to being an easy winner for me. We haven't seen anyone win the contest consecutively since the 90s with, ironically, Ireland, considering Sweden had tied Ireland in wins last year. It would only be fitting for narrative purposes if they won back-to-back. But maybe that's asking a bit too much. And I understand why some people may not like the genre that this poses, why they may be over it, but me, I get some rather good mileage out of it. And if this somehow gets less than 5th place, heck, if this doesn't get in the top 4, I'm gonna be rather miffed. You mean to tell me that if I Were Sorry would have done better? Are you kidding me with that? But then again, this also could work for that thumbtacks and string thing. Maybe France was supposed to win because the performer for Sweden was named Franz, and the theme for that year's Eurovision was Come Together, which the Netherlands had referenced, so maybe we're going to France in 2025? I guess that would make sense given the Olympics is this year. But yeah, I mean, best of luck to those two. Wait. The first contest that Sweden hosted was in 1975, was in Stockholm, and Netherlands was drawn first and they won. Okay, no, I have to put this aside and move on to the second song, which is Ukraine. Are you trying to insult my intelligence at this point? Okay, to be fair, it is very risky to let Ukraine host the next contest, however popular their song may be. But just the thought that Sweden put Ukraine in the infamous second spot in the running order, a spot from which no one had ever won, still amuses me. Like Sweden going, if I can't have a good result, neither will you, Cranes. Okay, next up we get another automatic qualifier, which is Germany. Germany sent for us Isaac and his song Always on the Run. It's called Always on the Run, meaning I can't do a Steven Universe reference, but that's okay. I've been trying to move out of that market for a while now. When I first heard the song on CD, I thought this would be the kind of song that the UK or Ireland would send. I wasn't really expecting Germany, although, to be fair, Germany should have been up there. And admittedly, the song is decent, pretty solid. It is on brand for Germany. It's a radio hit, out and out, and it's gonna get a lukewarm reception. It's a real solid song, a real solid radio number, but for Eurovision, I don't know if it's gonna be enough, especially with the caliber of songs that are competing this year. Although, I will give some leniency toward Germany, because at least it's not another dance song. How many? Goodness sake. At least Germany is doing that bit. And, you know, it could always end up like Michael Schulte back in 2018. You never know with these things. But after Germany's performance, we get Luxembourg. And then 6th up is Israel. Wait, 6th up? 6th up? I count only 5 songs. What has happened? I'll get into that later, but basically I held off on watching the flag parade because I thought I missed some songs because I saw Sweden up and I didn't realize that they were first in the running order. I thought they were something like 8th or 9th, and I thought, I'll just hold off until the hosts come aboard. So I have no idea who was the odd one out in this edition. Something has happened, but we'll get into that. We're only going to really talk about Israel this time because anti-booing technology. You can hear the booing and the anti-booing technology trying to substitute for that. But after Israel, we get Lithuania, and after that, we get Spain. This is kind of awkward because I decided to record my thoughts on the automatic qualifiers ahead of time, which is why you might see them as being stand out peculiar. I thought the only fair way I could do this recording on my thoughts without having them spoiled by what happens in the results of the grand final is by doing them ahead of time with the performances we got. But I did say a few things about comparing Spain to San Marino that didn't particularly age well. So I'll run you through that as my past self, and then we'll pick it up from here, okay? Spain sent us Nebulosa and Zora, or Thora as it's pronounced in Castilian. I have the privilege of being able to pronounce it Zora because my parents are Mexican. I grew up with that dialect of Spanish. But that did confuse me a little bit when I was listening to the CD version with no context. I had no idea the title translated to fox, the feminine definition. But are you ready for some 70s discotheque? No? Too bad! We got some of that from Spain. And some odd performances? Like, I honestly kinda ticked off at Spain because I listened to the CD and the San Marinese song Once con Once popped up in the random shuffle before this song, and I thought that was a Spanish song, and this was some try-hard following up on Spain's coattails. But unfortunately, that is not the case. It's not that Spain sent in a bad song. They sent in a pretty solid discotheque-flavored song. But that's exactly why it's gonna fail. It doesn't really stand out that much besides, you know, really starting off like Denmark 2021 and packing so much song into 3 minutes. Like, goodness sake, so many songs have problems with pacing themselves to make it feel that you've got the full song experience without making your audience feel tired at the end or making them want for more. Like, for instance, Sweden. And there are a lot of songs that, even in this contest, felt they were going on a bit too long. Austria, in a sense. Georgia, the whole, I feel it in the air, I feel it in the air, I feel it in the air, really repetitive. But Spain, they struck pretty much close to the balance when it comes to getting that package of making you feel that you had plenty when it ended, and no more and no less. But it doesn't really stand out that much, especially for this contest. If they had sent in Once con Once, I would legitimately be saying that the trophy may be going to Spain for the first time in, how long has it been? 55 years? But no, this time, no. Credit to Benidorm and all that sort of stuff, but I honestly am kind of frustrated with Spain. Hopefully their next Benidorm song could do well. Heck, I should give it a shot. I should send a song over to Televisión Española and see how they do. Of course, I know it has to be a fully Spanish language song. Also, I need to practice on my singing, and that involves knowing my strengths and my weaknesses. But I think I can manage. I just need to learn how to write that song I have in my head, the song that I've been playing on repeat, learn how to practice it, and learn how to get my foot in the door at Televisión Española, and hope that they will accept someone with a Mexican background. But enough about prepositions. And from Spain we move on to Estonia, and I guess I really have to talk about it now, but what really is there to talk about? I mean, the song feels as bizarre as, say, Finland or Netherlands, but without any real reason. Could be because I didn't quite understand it, but Netherlands had some charm. Finland had a bit of a message, but they caught everyone's attention with, yeah, that. Estonia, I can't really describe it. When you're at the point where you have to put versions of yourself dancing on the screen, the same dance that you're doing on stage, I'm going, tryhards. Next up is Ireland, and from there we move on to Latvia, and then from there we move on to Greece, and from there we pick it up with the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has given us Ollie Alexander and the song Dizzy. I am automatically disappointed. Why? Well, I told you about the CD. I talked about the CD for a long time and how I listened to the songs without context, but I honestly thought what turned out to be the Czech song was gonna be what UK sent. That would have been awesome. But instead we got Dizzy. And it's not that Dizzy is bad, really. It's on brand for the UK. It's a good radio hit, and it's gonna get a lukewarm reception. I've kind of changed my mind a little bit about the idea of sending songs to Eurovision, because I thought these songs would naturally attach to the radio in some way, shape, or form and evolve the contest through that exposure. But looking back at it, that was kind of obtuse. Is that how you use the word? Radio-friendly songs in Eurovision can get a lot of appreciation, like with Rosalind's Snap, but they're not guaranteed to win because Eurovision is not structured to favor radio friendliness and overall reception to commercial success. They're more based off of how they get your attention, how well the song is made. It's a more full package sort of stuff. There are more factors than simply a song sounding good. In the case of Ollie Alexander's staging, you had a bunch of prison inmates in a spaceship heading off to presumably a outer space penal colony. Let's call this thing Australia. Yeah, it had kind of a reverse Paul Oscar feel to it, but I wouldn't really say that it's going to win, or maybe even top 10. I think it's gonna be there. It's gonna do better, and it's honestly still better than a lot of the stuff that the UK was sending in the 2010s. The UK honestly cares about this contest again, and I could see how having a song in Eurovision could ultimately lead to success at home in the UK, despite all that, through exposure. There is a way to make that work, but this general idea of mastering a pop hit to send it to Eurovision is a bit flawed. And I should have thought about that a bit more. I should have recognized that. But hindsight is the unprecedented times, so we got to move on, and I guess best of luck to UK. Hopefully you get another second place finish in 2020s, or I could write a song for you eventually. But for now, it's alright to just add to the playlist, but I'm not expecting much more from that. And then after the United Kingdom we have Norway, and from there we have Italy. Italy got us Angelina Mango. Voz de Mango. I always wanted to do that. That's a reference to Voz de Mango. And the song La Noia. And, you know, not a bad Caribbean hit, but I kind of find it disappointing that this came from Italy. If it came from San Marino, I would get it and I would have fun. And, you know, it's quite the nice little beat. Very saucy. But, I don't know, when Italy had been sending us quite the very profound, deep hits that they have been doing. Even Måneskin had some level of message in a way. This one is kind of shallow. At least Italy is doing something a little bit new, although, to be fair, they are using Sanremo. When you're using a national final, it's unfair of you to say the national broadcaster is doing something new, unless they really switch up the national final. Decent song, Italy, but I'm not really expecting the world from them in this rate. After Italy's performance is done, we get Serbia, then we get Finland, then Portugal, then Armenia, then Cyprus, then Switzerland, and then Slovenia tucked between Switzerland and the performer after that, Croatia. Oh boy! Then we get Georgia, and to perform 25th, even though they technically performed 24th, is France. And France sent in Slimane with the song Le Grand Soir. Oh, excuse me. No, It's called Mon Amour. The reason that got me confused is this is Le Grand Soir, you know, Belgium's 2005 song, if it were trying to be Voila. Though I will give credit, this is a classic case of a simple meal well done. I remember listening to the CD version and thought, if this were France, I'm kind of disappointed. I would have thought they would have given it a bit more effort. But the plot twist is the performance is admittedly better. They took the risk of not only presenting it like Voila, especially in that last part, but also have Slimane stand back a little bit and just do a vocal solo. Like, unaided and just full volume. Okay, I guess if all else fails, rely on your chops. And even though I am still a bit hesitant on this song as a personal favorite, I will give credit for such a number being well done. It's not that the song is bad in itself. That is the big problem. It's that the song is pretty basic, not particularly unique. But it can be elevated with a good performance. And that's pretty much what France has. Now, can it win? I don't know if it will. It would be a surprise. Although, in this case, a bit more pleasant than a lot of the entries so far in the automatic qualifiers range. And then we leave France, and I forgot to bring up something. Remember how I was trying to figure out without any information who was the odd one disqualified? Yeah, it was kind of painful. I was going through my options. I didn't really think about it until the second half of the show, and then I thought, hopefully one of those entries that I didn't like, that I feel really qualified out of spite, gets disqualified for, I don't know, packing the public vote. Because, yeah, the public vote can be rigged. In fact, it has been rigged. You think that the juries, by eliminating them, you eliminate corruption? No, you don't. You just make it harder to compensate for when the public vote gets corrupted. But yeah, things were going not great. I thought maybe Armenia is the one that's got disqualified. After all, Armenia, Russia, buddies. That's the stereotype anyway. I don't truly believe it, considering I studied in a city with an Armenian enclave in it. But no, Hayastan made it through. And then later on I was down to song number 23 and thought, wait, it's Georgia. How could they get in with such a generic song? They had to have... Nope. They also remained in the grand final. That left me with France, Austria, and Netherlands. And I thought if Austria gets DQ'd, I'm not gonna miss it that much. It's a real good song, but I think it's really outclassed in this contest. If France get eliminated, that's a shame, but they probably have a good reason. And after all, in 1974... they pulled out because of the passing away of a French president, and the performer didn't get to perform in the contest before she passed away too. This is why I feel really sad for the 2020 performers who never made it onto the Eurovision stage. Hopefully one day they find that way, including the mamas. We'll talk about them later. But if Netherlands got disqualified, I would be pretty ticked off. France got announced, so I thought Austria or Netherlands. Let's go Netherlands, except no, it was Austria. Dang nab. It! Yeah, funny how Luxembourg ended up the only Benelux country in the grand final because Belgium was eliminated and Netherlands was DQ'd. But I was not in the best headspace after all that sort of stuff. Not only did you eliminate 3 of my top 4, but you also disqualified my top 7 for reasons that I will get into at the end of the show. Do not you worry. I'll look at the reports that come out and try to figure out what had happened. But for now, I will not make any further judgment until I have that information. And yeah, this was, I think it was the very first time a Eurovision entrant got disqualified before performing in the final, and the running order wasn't corrected after that by, you know, adjusting the numbers or bringing in an extra qualifier from the semifinals. They didn't. Who knows who could have entered the contest and ended up 11th in the semis. Sure, they would have had an albatross hanging over them because they were 11th in the semis and weren't supposed to be there, but I thought maybe it could have been one of my favorites, who knows. But this feeling sucks. You can't truly be objective when it comes to a song contest, and yeah, let's say it. I voted out of spite. First off, let's show you my provisional final ranking. How the provisional final ranking work is I take my top 10 of each semifinal and pull them together with the automatic qualifiers. But as you can see, that did not slide in as well as I had hoped. For the first time since making these lists, 2 of my provisional final top 3 are not even in the grand final. Some things like this have happened in my semi-final rankings, but never my grand final rankings, and that was not great. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to stick it to the EBU. I'm going to give 25% of my votes to the remaining member of the top 4 in semi-final 2, Switzerland. See if they can do really well. And I'm going to give another 25% to Croatia, because even though I really love Ukraine's song, at the same time I feel Croatia would be remembered more fondly for its Eurovision class act, and it's honestly a really good pump of a song. Yeah, take that. I'm voting for Switzerland and Croatia. And it doesn't really matter to you because you somehow get my hard-earned dollars. And now on to the interval acts. And, okay. Where do I really begin with this? Remember, this show was building off of the 50th anniversary of ABBA's win in Eurovision. That was the whole motif! Nothing else mattered. So, Malin said, hey, I got that famous Swedish act back together. Well, 3 of them. So, you want them? And then Petra went, you didn't tell me you brought in ABBA. No, not ABBA. Alcazar! And, okay. The song Alcazar sent for us was okay, but as an interval act, I thought it was pretty dull. Eventually, Pietra had to show up with a fire extinguisher and say, no, you got this all wrong. No one knows who Alcazar is. And of course you can invite them super easily. And then we actually got ABBA. Except, it felt rather sad in retrospect. You got some of the members of ABBA right there on a stage halfway across Europe. They were talking about their experiences in 1974. And then we get these holographic videos all around these totally real people by that stage showing memories of that 1974 performance and victory. Which I guess it's better than nothing, but you could have gone all Mamma Mia on this contest, and yet you blew that stunt in Eurovision Choir! Eurovision Choir! Nothing against Eurovision Choir, but really, that was not great. Okay, we have probably a few more video packages besides that and throughout the show, but nothing particularly memorable. But then we get Loreen with a song called Forever, and then transitioning into the song she won with in 2023, Tattoo. And, yeah. First off, really? Just those 2? You aren't gonna play Euphoria, you aren't gonna play My Heart Is Refusing Me, or even Statements? None of that? It isn't like you were minted Eurovision champion for the first time last year, and also, Loreen was only really in the contest for that interval act and for presenting the trophy, which I'll give you credit on the latter one. Not every Eurovision winner has presented the trophy, but I consider it a bare minimum. I can understand if you have prior commitments. After all, your body, your choice. But honestly, felt kind of sad that you weren't around. Speaking of people not being around, where was Mons? Where was Mons Zermelov? I know a lot of people had gotten kind of tired of the guy, but after all, we are in Sweden, and I must have missed something to not spot him around. And also, while we're at it, where's the mamas? You know, the participants for Eurovision 2020 that everyone was clamoring on about. After all, Italy brought in Deodato to perform as a semi-final interval act when the contest was held in Turin, which I'm pronouncing Turin because I found out Italian is kind of more complicated than I had thought. Like, for instance, you remember that one JoJo Golden Wind episode? No, you don't. Where the person says, everyone pronounces Paris, Paris, except for the English. And yet, no one pronounces Venice, Venezia, like the Italians do. Nope, like the Tuscan Italians do. You want to know why? Because I think maybe everyone had caught on to the fact that, the Venetians don't pronounce their city Venezia. It's pronounced Venecia, or something like that. I know someone had tried to pronounce that city's name and got wrecked for failing. But yeah, it's a bit closer to Venice than Venezia. But even the Italians had brought in Deodato to perform the song that he was going to perform in 2020, but didn't. And it's not like Sweden couldn't afford to bring in all of these entrants. I mean, they brought in Canel, they brought in Eric Sade, they brought in Eleni Forera, they brought in Beniamino Ingrosso. The list goes on. They didn't bring in the mamas, and ultimately, I have to say, this is a rather disappointing interval act for Eurovision 2024. They were all sizing this up for ABBA's 50th anniversary, but hardly did anything beyond that, and what they did do about ABBA's 50th anniversary felt a little disappointing. I know in the old times you had space for really only one interval act and it started to balloon in the 21st century, but I'm disappointed that you couldn't really think of more. I mean, big moments in 2013. I mean, you had the Smorgasbord. Who could forget the Smorgasbord? And in 2016, you had Love, Love, Peace, Peace. I mean, no one really cares about Justin Timberlake, but Love, Love, Peace, Peace, man! What do you have for me here? I cannot believe it, but this has been kind of a downer for an interval act. Especially when I kind of need to get my hopes built up in advance of the grand final in the hope that one of my favorites does really well, if not win. Okay, before we close the phone numbers, or whatever the kids call them these days, we have the recap of who performed. Now, we've had recaps earlier in the show, but this recap is backwards. This is not new to Eurovision. This has happened in 2002 and 2003. The difference here is that it's not the only form of recap that this show had taken. They only did it once in this edition, whereas in 2002 and 2003, that was the only recap they did. So I guess they're really doing variety in moderation, which is on brand for Sweden, I guess. Okay. Voting has closed. Now it's time to present the jury votes, and for that I need to get myself a little more composed than this, and hopefully I can go into this and not blow up or something. Another 50-minute video? How does this keep happening? By the time I get around to talking about the final results, it's gonna be well over an hour long. Part 3.1 was supposed to be a meme, but I guess I'm going to have to do it. I guess I'm going to have to talk about the results in a separate video. Tune in next week where I finally get into that part, as well as all the other awards that the EBU and fans like to give out, and other trouble spots that we need to get into. Do the feedback thing, like, comment, subscribe, or dislike if you're one of those people who really do want me to go over an hour with this stuff. I probably wouldn't want to sit next to you on a bus, though. This has been J.E. Realize. I'll see you next time. Hasta la sintonía.